Ever wonder what it really takes to make zero trust work in practice? Welcome to Zero Trust Journey, the podcast that cuts through the noise and dives into real stories and strategies to bring zero trust to life. The cybersecurity world is flooded with buzzwords and vendor hype, but here we focus on what truly matters, practical insights and lessons from those who've walked the path. Each episode is inspired by real experiences, grounded in our research, and enriched by the challenges and triumphs of our guests. If you're ready to grow your skills, deepen your insights, and take actionable steps toward a stronger zero trust strategy, you've come to the right place. Let's get started. The views and opinions expressed on the Zero Trust Journey podcast, webcast are solely those of the participants and do not represent the views of their employers or affiliated organizations. This content is provided for educational and informational purposes only. Neither the employers nor any sponsors are liable for actions taken based on the content discussed.
Welcome to another episode of Zero Trust Journey. My name is Victor Monga. I am a host and producer at Zero Trust Journey. With me today, we have Zach Pugh, my co-host. Today, we want to talk about how to validate Zero Trust. So this episode is a lot about war stories and where we talk about if a company or organization is thinking that they have implemented and instituted the Zero Trust, how do you validate it? And some of those stories where they thought that it was instrumented and it was not. So with me today, we have a guest, Rainer Salmonai. Is that right way to say it?
Perfectly fine. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Rainer is actually CEO and CTO of Sentry, a cybersecurity company. He is also a co-author of a book called Adversary, Emulation, and Minor Attacks. So he comes from a lot of plethora of cybersecurity, red teaming, penetration testing, and applying his skills for blue teaming these days.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
So let's start with this one. When was the first time you heard Zero Trust and you felt that this is something that you need to learn more, or you need to read more, watch more? Give us that day or that week when you heard about Zero Trust.
I think I should talk in stages because my mindset from the first moment that I learned about Zero Trust has changed over the years, and its applicability in different levels of cybersecurity has changed as well. I think it was like 10 years ago, I read this post by John Kindervag, I think, and he was like writing about this new security philosophy where it's not about only perimeter security. And he was like in some level trying to foresee how different technologies are going to merge, and that classical castle approach is not going to fit the big picture anymore. To be honest, in the beginning, it looked a bit like just another flavor to everything what was going on. And sometimes cybersecurity companies and individuals have this tendency to create new words about the same thing. Yeah. But I think for me, the biggest hit on Zero Trust was during COVID. That was the time when Zero Trust started to materialize as a concept, as a philosophy. And with more cloud-based services and with the issue of remote work, tens of millions and billions of investment from companies in their perimeter security was not applicable anymore. And threat actors for the first time had a huge upper hand because of the targeting, and those employees were not part of the castle protection, if I may say like that. So Zero Trust started to become that thing where I said, actually, there's a lot of practicality of this model, and there's a lot of things where you can use not only from blue teaming, but red teaming models as well.
That makes sense. I think based on the research and the conversations we have heard, it totally makes sense. During COVID time, when people actually started doing a lot of remote work, started actually adopting a lot of SaaS platforms, that's when they realized the traditional approach of like the perimeter, where everybody was coming inside your perimeter and you can control everything, goes in and out. It became just irrelevant overnight. That's when they had to implement something new, something I would say so basic and fundamental and yet new for the security program. And Zero Trust was that, where I have no problems trusting Zach as a person, but that trust has no place in the cyber or digital space. And that's where the mind shift or paradigm shift happened, where how do I know that it's Zach behind that computer when I am actually just seeing the name on the identity? That's when I started looking at where does Zach really need access to all 51 applications? Sorry, Zach, I'm picking up on you. It's just the name. But So that's when people started realizing that the least privilege access, the defense in depth, all of those principles, it just made sense with the strategy called zero trust.
Yeah, so I just want to dig in a little bit more there. So when you first started seeing some actual traction in zero trust, what were the kind of key indicators that you were looking for someone to be successful in their implementation of zero trust?
I think first thing that we should do is address the big elephant in the room. I think zero trust has been used as terminology for years, and in some level, there's a lot of misconception about it. And to be honest, I every time I was hearing about zero trust, it was so simple to understand in the terminology. It is zero trust, don't trust no one, don't trust the devices. Create a type of relationship that only the right permissions or the right access is provided to the individual process or technology. And then you had companies saying that we are zero trust certified. And we started to getting like 5 years ago, somewhere like that, to hear that terminology that we are zero trust certified. And that's where my curiosity started to pick. So what does zero trust means in a continuous process? What does a zero trust certified means in a process where it should never end? It is, as you said, a journey. I think usually the clients that we chat in scoping phase, because that's the most important part before we kickstart the project, we have seen the behavior of putting the zero trust as a point in time, and we reach this level and we should be secure and fine. And after actually performing certain type of assessments like red teaming and pen testing, we see that a lot of core functions of zero trust are not applied. As I said, it is a journey. It doesn't stop, but at the same time, it's not only users. It's about technology. We have reached a point, especially with cloud computing, where not only users communicate. Now you have, if you take microservice architecture, you can have thousands of microservices communicating to each other, which every one of those has a specific permission set. And what we see is even having that and saying we are zero trust certified. I don't know what that means, or we use zero trust. When you go and review their cloud implementation, because we managed to hack a certain permission, you see that this Lambda function communicates with this additional service where this function only needs read permissions. However, the application has read, write, and all the right administrative permissions to perform actions that it actually doesn't need. So for me, when they say we use zero trust model, I always try to see their maturity, their understanding in zero trust. So every time I reply, what do you mean with zero trust? And if they say, oh, we have this certification, we did this, I know that it's going to be an exciting assessment because after they receive the findings, they start to shift from the theoretical concept of zero trust, where you only think you know the concepts and try to understand that zero trust, it is much more than just a component. It's a whole environment. It's a whole infrastructure. So we have seen, and just to give you some stats from 1,500 tests that we have done from 2017, I was just checking, there's no assessment that has not produced vulnerability reports. All of them had some group of vulnerabilities, which means not necessarily the zero trust model that they were using or haven't not thought about is the problem. You will always have vulnerabilities, but the thing is that how you're going to address that after it. What was the outcome of it? Have you done a plan how to actually remove those stored credentials from GitHub repositories and have a better way to manage those access controls? Or what is the lesson learned from the assessment? And most of the time we redo the assessment, which is another great thing. And after they go in this training, because when they read the report in some level, they're getting educated in their environment infrastructure, and they start to see from a different angle, from the offensive angle. And me as an offensive red teamer, I'm not going only to try and focus on what vulnerability you think you have. I'm going to try and change things. Something that you think it's a low severity, low criticality, for me, it's a must because I can chain those attacks together into a major operation that in the end is going to yield a report, which most of the time shows that the whole environment, domain controller or other components have. To give you an example of it, I remember server-side request forgery type of vulnerability back in the day. You have this only parameter where it calls an image outside, and it was not a big deal. You can override this parameter and get a request, make the server do that request and get the data. And you can mess around with your friends and say, yeah, I found a vulnerability, but the impact was really low. But when the cloud infrastructure came, Amazon and all those companies introduced something that they call metadata API, where the EC2 instance, the instance communicate, I call that mothership, communicates with a Amazon core services, and it has access to view certain permissions. It has access to perform queries directly on the local environment of the cloud. A vulnerability that was calculated as a low severity becomes one of the hardest to deal with. So it's not about finding the vulnerability. It's about chaining. And usually zero trust addresses the chaining issue, which none of other models address. Think about the castle approach. You break the perimeter security, you're in, that's it. Then it's all what you want to do. But with zero trust model, and of course, if you try and invest on monitoring and logging as well, you're going to have visibility. You're going to always assume that someone is there. It's a little bit paranoid, but it works. And you're going to be strict when it comes to, hey, do I need this? And I always ask my team when they try and share documents with me or permissions, and they have the tendency, because I run the team, I should have all the access. And every time I ask, is this something that I should know? Because if this is not something that I should know, if I get compromised, you get compromised, the product gets compromised.
Yeah.
So it doesn't need to come only from you as a system admin configuring, but it should come into the team level as well. Hey, do I need this? Ask yourself if you need actually that access.
So let's have a quick on that one, Rainer. I think you made a really good point and gave insights where, well, first of all, I really love about the part where there's no zero trust certification yet. So for those, I'm sorry, vendors and the customers who are following you for it, there is no zero trust certification. But I want to double click on the part where you said, what does zero trust mean to you when companies are coming out to you and asking you, hey, either run a penetration test or help me mature my program, security program, and they will tell you that they have zero trust. And you're usually what you said, and I'm quoting you here, what is zero trust to you? What does it mean to you? And that's a hard question to answer as a customer right now, because does that mean I have 3 or 4 security solutions and platforms and technologies in my stack where they are providing zero trust? Or does that mean my staff is equipped with zero trust knowledge? Or does it mean I have a zero trust policy or a 70-page document? And that's, what does zero trust mean to you as a company? And I think that question is hard to answer, right?
Yep. It is.
So you talked to our friends in the government sector as well, where they have matured zero trust, they've adopted it. You recently published a blog on the flank speed from U.S. Navy as well, where they have achieved those controls and stuff. So, and Brainer's angle, where he's actually validating a zero trust, what do you feel? What do you say where it can give our audience and listeners a framework to answer that question, that what does zero trust mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you need to define what your goal is within each sort of a security program. And, a good CISO is always going to align their security program with your business objectives. That's the hot word in the CISO market now is tie it to your business objectives. And I think zero trust security is the same way, right? Where it's a strategy of how you're implementing this. It's how you're protecting your business, how you're protecting your customers, how you're protecting your data. And when you're trying to figure out how the best way to implement this, when I'm talking to people, they're taking the same approach that they would in developing their business security controls and what makes sense for me to implement. So taking a step back from the start and saying, well, what do I need to protect? What's the best way to go about that? What am I doing now? where is that falling short? And I think a lot of that ties into some of the guidance that's been released. Like in the U.S., we've got the CISA Zero Trust Maturity Model. We've got a DoD Zero Trust strategy. We've got individual agencies that have their own. Now, I'm very curious, Jadar, how has or have those types of publications, have you seen those be widely adopted globally? And maybe how does this validation of zero trust come into your MITRE ATT&CK work?
You have to understand that we are addressing different type of companies and enterprises. And I don't think there's no silver bullet to address all of the issues. You cannot address a SME and say, hey, this is the DoD standard, or this is the NIST standard, and apply this, and you're going to reach the maturity on zero trust. Because first of all, there is a lot of restraints on cybersecurity budgeting, and now it's becoming easier. But past years, you have to invest a lot to actually, as a CISO, to convince the board to address cybersecurity properly. And I think at some level, it is a financial issue, and how much you as a company value your privacy, your data, and security. And I have had clients which had not a large budget, and they asked me, what should I do? What is the first thing that I would do? Not everything needs a lot of investment. And some things are housekeeping, for example. And still, I meet a lot of partners and clients that they do not have a updated list of all digital assets, which is a fundamental on a zero trust model. So when we do the penetration testing or red teaming, we find those assets, and many times I have CISOs and IT department coming, oh, we didn't know we had this endpoint, or we didn't know we had this asset. And that's where you know that they are failing on the first level, which is proper documentation of digital assets and processes as well. And at the same time, you have more mature companies. I have heard that certain models are being used, but as well, you have to understand that companies have already invested in their digital infrastructure. The castle has already been created, and it's going to take some time until these new concepts and these models are applied at scale. And always you want to, when I talk to CISOs, I always say, take priorities, do prioritization. What is the most critical thing to your organization? Something that is critical to me doesn't mean that it is critical to you. And zero trust model fits perfectly with this concept. And because it is a continuity, you start here, a year from now, you can be here and continue as you scale, as you grow, your environment and your needs change as well.
We talk about that during our CISA trainings, where it's nothing new, and yet we have to repeat and remind ourselves where there's no one size fits all, especially when it comes to zero trust strategy, because a lot of times the words are used differently. Zero trust compliance, zero trust model, as in where it actually provides you tactical guidance of the controls and stuff. No, it has principles and it's a strategy, but you got to tailor that strategy to your company, to your business needs, to your business requirements, to your team skills and talent you have in-house. But one thing I'm interested, Rainer, when let's say a company has decided what zero trust means to them today, and they have implemented the controls, how do they go about validating it? And especially what Zach asked in the previous question, where how do they validate with an angle of MITRE ATT&CK framework? So if let's say I have complete coverage of all the relevant tactics and techniques matter to me in my industry, doesn't mean I have achieved zero trust. Is that something you've heard? Is that something you've validated? Any stories around it?
It can be much simpler as a list of things, but it can get very complex as well. Here's the story. So I remember a couple years ago, 1 or 2 years ago, we were doing this assessment, and it was more like, it was not red teaming, it was more adversary emulation. And adversary emulation takes the APT perspective, not the objective oriented like red teamings, go into the server room, take this or take that. The adversary emulation takes the mindset of APT, and it only focuses on those specific behaviors that have been seen and observed for that specific threat actor. Usually it's a combination of a cyber threat intelligence where they come with, hey, we are scared because of the Fin 6 or Fin 7 or this another APT. So we track that behavior, we create an emulation plan, and we start to execute. When executing, as I said, sometimes what you think that you have implemented and the right way to implement are two different things. Sometimes it can be something light as, okay, you want to be reach a higher level of maturity. You want to address all those findings. You go like in a standard assessment, but in the other time, you would need some type of teaming where you sit down, you tie each one of the TTPs, if you want to do that with MITRE ATT&CK, and you track that from the blue team and the red team. When you execute the specific TTP, and that TTP is validated on 3 parameters. Is it detected? Is it protected? Is it missed? If you miss your monitoring and logging environment, it's totally missing that specific TTP, then you have a higher risk allowed. Or if it is only detecting it, but you don't have reaction and protection capabilities, is somewhere in the middle. But if you know to detect and have capabilities to protect, then that specific behavior is contained more properly in your environment. So because cybersecurity is complex, and we are seeing the zero trust model, it is a holistic model. You cannot approach it with one way of thinking, because certain industries have different needs compared to other industries. Certain technologies, you can just go through a list and check that and easy to verify, but others require a more technical, advanced expertise to verify that actually those have been properly implemented. And it requires a team, not only from us testing you, but from the company actually understanding what findings they are collecting. Because if they don't react, all that assessment has gone to waste.
Let's talk about one thing, actually. So when it comes to zero trust, and let's say a new attack is coming out, and new techniques are always emerging and evolving, and we know that. How do you respond to that, where a new attack has emerged and new technique has emerged, and the company has estimated and evolved in zero trust journey? How do they respond to that? So if a new attack came in and they have zero trust strategy, they need to validate all of their controls against that principle, that strategy that they have built and the plan they have built. How do they go about doing it, like in a accelerated, fast response style?
Yeah. With a lot of those companies, we have service agreements where certain things, when things like that happen, we have an R&D team always checking for things like that. And we see a new behavior or a new way of exploiting certain vulnerabilities where we think that our clients can be affected. We have a protocol where we reach out and we try to see and analyze how much impact that specific change is going to affect that environment. But this is very, very specific. This goes towards more larger companies that have actually the capacities to handle those type of services. For smaller companies, you always need to have a CISO or some technical asset and resources to actually move forward. And there is a lot of cybersecurity feeds right now where you're going to get the latest and good information. It's not like how it used to be 10 years ago, where you had only a few places where you can mine information. And most of the time you needed to be a threat analyst and dive deep into dark web and check what is going on to see if there's TTPs which you need to extract to fine tune your CM or fine tune your detection mechanisms. Today, I think it's becoming much easier to come to that information. But usually it is a straightforward procedure. If we find, for example, a specific behavior which we think that is going to affect our client and certain processes or implementation, we reach out, we initialize a meeting. We need always to have someone technical from their team to actually explore and then they move on into actually sanitizing and protecting. But here's another story that I always have explaining to people. So there's this scenario where we were testing this corporate environment. It was a Active Directory with a lot of networks. And I'm not going to talk about microsegmentations because that's the ABC of Zero Trust. Think about this. We managed to compromise this host, and it was post-pandemic. But post-pandemic means that everyone was introduced to remote work. So even if you had office hours, you had work remote hours as well. So this company had built certain processes. They had multi-factor authentication, which is the core function of identity and access management. And all the users had to log in through certain procedures and had follow certain ABCs. But one of the users was using a not up-to-date login, which we utilized to get in. And when we compromised the computer, we managed to sit on the host on the computer and track the different discussions that were happening in the Discord channel. So what that company did, they said, okay, because it's COVID, let's use Discord. We are all geeks, all hackers, 200, 300 developers. Let's use Discord and put all business operations in Discord, and it is much easy. And Discord, let's use multi-factor authentication, yada yada yada. Everything was okay. They missed only one thing. They already had authentication session, which means if I go to a specific directory, take that database with authenticated sessions and download that database in my local computer and install Discord and refresh the app, the session is going to start. And I'm going to get access to your company where I can see your alarm pins, all your operations, the funny part, how and who prints the badges for the company, all certain codes. And while you were working remote, I can print this high quality access card and I know the alarm pins and go to your server room and do whatever the hell I want because of one single computer, which was using MFA for Discord access. And this is another issue. It is changing. Zero Trust provides all the framework, all the steps, but you need sometimes to push the practicality. You cannot say, for example, I'm going to use access cards to access the office, but you don't log who is accessing the office. You just authenticate the user, or you don't log the user access on the computer. So certain components need to change to tell a story, and that's how Zero Trust actually supports. But always think about chaining, and that's the way how I like to assess those security mechanisms. It's not about control; it's how they fit together and tell the story for the user as an enterprise.
Fair enough. I'm wondering, as you're heavily involved in the offensive security side and speaking with business owners, business leaders, and even governments, you've got a pretty broad range of people you interact with. How have you seen Zero Trust as a narrative kind of evolve in these? Are you seeing it show up in reports? Are you seeing it be viewed as a buzzword or valuable? What's your take there?
I think it used to be a huge buzzword a couple of years ago. Now AI is taking over. AI is the buzzword for everything. But still is there in the list. The Zero Trust, artificial intelligence, AI red teaming, and all those components are becoming a part of a lot of discussions I hear. But right now in the current constellation, I think AI is taking over everything, and I think they're going to use even AI to propose zero trust models for certain companies and automate certain processes. But yeah, it is here, and I think it's here to stay.
Are you seeing it in your reports? Like when you deliver red team reports to customers, are you putting this as a Zero Trust evaluation of yours, or how are you kind of linking those?
Not like that, but from the public sector, especially when you work with the public sector, they always have a Zero Trust required for the service you deliver. So this architecture has been done in the Zero Trust, or if you want to provide these, we are announcing this RFP because of a Zero Trust requirement to always continuously assess and assume breach. And we want to validate that if the specific pillar of Zero Trust has been actually met. So it is a buzzword, and I think it's here to stay because it's a very practical. You can interpret, you can build models. The story is simple: trust but verify. and it applies. I think what we should assess is forward compatibility, because and this is a short discussion we had with Victor about the cyber persistence theory, and sometimes we don't have the right evaluation about what technology actually means or what digital space means, and sometimes we do those mistakes from old school way of thinking where deterrence is the solution, or where certain technology has certain attributes. And this is because of we were not able to anticipate how the cyberspace is going to evolve. And I think right now, cyberspace, it's about exploitation. Cyberspace, it's about whoever is going to take the initiative. That's why continuous type of assessments, continuous type of security is going to be more than essential. Because persistent threats, threat actors don't do hacking point in time anymore. They do pre-positioning, which means, hey, I don't know when I'm going to use this accessing this SCADA system, but why not have access when certain political decisions come to play? I have access and I can compromise or put certain systems in risk. And because of that, zero trust is the philosophy, right, for what I see in the years to come.
Right. And that aligns directly with assuming breach. That's one of the core principles of zero trust. I did want to touch on one more thing, and then I'll give the floor back to Victor. Sorry for taking up so much of your time, Victor. I want to tap into your educational business where you're mentoring and educating professionals that are emerging in the space. Are there any kind of key skills that you want to highlight for people as they're preparing to deal with the demands of zero trust environments in the future?
Surely not technical skills. And I came to this. It took me a while to understand what actually makes a great red teamer, great pen tester. Curiosity. I think people should have more curiosity. Everything technical you can learn. Like, it was hard years ago where you had to sometimes touch the gray area to actually learn and understand. But right now you have all the best tools, the best environment to actually learn cybersecurity. All what you need is curiosity. For the program we run at Cyber Academy, for us, it's very important to be hands-on, because sometimes you can run through 100 slides and still students are going to learn the theoretical part, but when you push them into a real project, they lack that expertise. And I remember my first projects where I got access, and I didn't know what to do because of the emotions, because of the adrenaline. I was totally blocked, or seeing some CNs putting alerts. You need that battlefield experience so that you don't think. Sometimes I call this muscle memory. It's just, you just reflex towards what is going on. And for that, you need, the cornerstone is to ask the questions and be like, what can I do with this? How much how would this work if I change this? And a small story, it was like 2010. I was tutoring some of my cousins into web security and how web security is awesome and how development is going to be the future and yada, yada, yada. I was using the dev tool back in the day. I don't remember, it was Firefox or Chrome. And I was showing that on one of the biggest social media of the time, which I'm not going to name the name. And during the class, I managed to find a vulnerability to bypass authentication on any user account. And I said, what is this? I never felt this. This is like the best feeling ever. This is my adrenaline addiction. So let's learn more about this, and let's explore this, and let's learn how you can actually report this. It was hard because you didn't even have bug bounties projects. You didn't have ways to communicate what you found. And most of the hackers and people like Kevin Matnick, like, you had a bad perception where they were like trying to show the future, what is going to happen. And that's why I actually opened Cyber Academy, is like, okay, let's build this shooting range for cybersecurity professionals. Let's have all the cyber ranges I know and build those, and let's give the students a controlled environment so that they can teach cybersecurity without going into the gray area or even committing crimes. So it's about that.
Oh, thanks for your insights there. Victor, any final departing thoughts before we wrap up?
No, I think Runner added a lot of good insights. The best part of this episode, I think I'm taking away is, what does your trust means to you as an organization? That's a question I think everybody who are listening should answer for yourself. The strategy is there, but what does it mean for you, so that next time when you're working with your partner, your vendors, at least that part is actually clarified internally before that the vendor's hype and the, again, non-zero trust certification comes over. So again, Brandon, thanks so much. This was great insights.
It's a pleasure to be here. Always enjoy talking to you, gentlemen.
If our audience wanted to connect with you and, learn more from your experience, what's the best way for them to connect?
Yeah, it's LinkedIn. Unfortunately, it's my only social media.
All right. Well, that brings us to the end of another episode of Zero Trust Journey. Janar, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and providing these kind of valuable insights on zero trust, particularly regarding the adversary emulation and your real global perspective here. I appreciate your time, contributions to the community with your various educational efforts as well. And to our listeners, thanks for joining us. For more resources, including our past episodes and some more insights, please visit ztjourney.com. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Zero Trust Journey.
Thanks for joining us on Zero Trust Journey. If this episode sparked new ideas or gave you practical insights, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with your network. Your support helps us continue bringing you valuable conversations and real-world stories. We'd love to hear from you. Share your feedback or even your own zero trust journey by reaching out to us. Your story could inspire others in the community. Stay tuned for more expert insights, compelling stories, and actionable advice to help you advance your zero trust strategy. Until next time, stay curious and keep making progress on your zero trust journey. See you in the next episode.